Welcome back to the Deep Dive, where we take your stack of sources and dive into the sociological and economic currents that, well, that structure our daily lives, often without us even realizing it.
And we are definitely in one of those moments right now.
We are firmly entrenched in that strange, often jarring time of year, aren't we? The societal mood has just pivoted on a dime.
It really has. The celebratory indulgence of the holidays, the feasts, the rest, the communal joy, it feels like it's been abruptly replaced.
Replaced by this sense of collective austerity.
It's the annual societal whiplash. The transition is startling in its speed and its universality.
Yes, universality is the word.
The entire culture shifts from permissive indulgence to this relentless, sometimes even punitive expectation of optimization. We go from the chaos of celebration to the rigid structure of self-management.
Exactly. And everywhere you look, the market is right there, ready to meet this new mood. You've got fitness trackers, financial planning software, subscription boxes promising these radical life overhauls.
Oh, it's waiting in the wings.
We feel this immense, almost gravitational pull towards self-improvement. But it's repelled not just by personal desire, but by the momentum of the millions around us doing the exact same thing.
Right.
And this leads us to our central question for today's deep dive, which is drawn from the sociological analysis of this whole annual phenomenon.
Which is?
Is January a genuine chance for change, or is it just a massive social performance? Today, we're looking at how society and the market tell us who we should be.
And our mission today is really to move entirely past those simplistic narratives, the ones about personal motivation and willpower.
Right, the pull yourself up by your bootstraps idea.
Exactly. We are treating the New Year's resolution not as a simple individual choice, but as a robust sociological construct. A highly structured, complex phenomenon driven by what we've termed a collective ritual and perhaps most powerfully intense market forces.
We've been immersed in the source material that dissects this annual transition, and we're going to be unpacking three major concepts that I think really govern this moment and explain why this pressure feels so acute.
Okay, what are they?
So we'll start with the fresh start effect, but analyze it as a collective ritual. Then we'll move to the engine of comparison. Social comparison theory.
The psychological driver.
Precisely. And finally, we dissect the economic reality of the resolution economy. Prepare to see your own goal-setting process and all the advertising targeting it reflected back at you through a very analytical and perhaps slightly critical lens.
To really understand the power of this moment, I think we have to first recognize the sheer scale of the synchronization going on. This is why we need to begin by establishing the fresh start effect, not just as some convenient psychological reset button for an individual,
but as a defining collective social ritual.
Exactly. That's where the power lies.
Okay, let's unpack that. The fresh start effect. Psychologically, it makes perfect sense. We know that these temporal milestones, the start of a new week, a new month, and especially a new year, they provide a kind of cognitive break.
A clean slate.
It lets us segment time and mentally wipe the slate clean of past failures, which gives us this renewed sense of optimism.
And that individual dimension is certainly the foundation. Of course it is. We all seek out those temporal markers to initiate change. But the sociological significance of the new year is that it is a collective social ritual.
It's not just me doing it in isolation.
Not at all. It is a massive, pre-scheduled, simultaneous agreement across millions, if not billions of people to initiate transformation together. This structured, predictable behavior is what elevates a personal goal into a powerful cultural mandate.
The synchronicity is everything, isn't it? If I decide in, say, July to start a restrictive budget, it's just a personal financial choice. It's my own business.
Right.
But when every news outlet, every social media feed, and every piece of junk mail agrees that January 1st is the day for everyone to tackle their finances, that personal aspiration instantly becomes codified. It's an implicit cultural expectation.
It's a mass-produced sense of urgency.
Yes.
Absolutely. And the collective nature of it is what grants the moment its intense, almost inescapable power. We see this structured, predictable nature in other highly cyclical cultural events.
Like what?
Well, think of seasonal fasts in various religious traditions, or major sporting finals, or even the annual release of specific cultural products like gaming consoles or huge film franchises.
They provide a predictable societal rhythm.
They do. But the New Year's ritual, it's unique. It's unique in its intense focus on personal performance and continuous optimization.
And this transition, where the calendar moves from simply tracking time to actively dictating behavior, that creates the perfect environment for the enforcement of societal norms.
Indeed. The collective utilizes this transition to subtly, or maybe not so subtly, enforce cultural norms of success.
Right.
If you are a member of contemporary Western society, the new year dictates what constitutes a desirable aspiration for the upcoming cycle. And the source material is very clear on this. The path is one of perpetual growth, not contentment or stillness.
It's never a mass movement resolving to slow down, is it? Or to simply enjoy what one already has. The dominant aspirations are always hyper-individualized and achievement-oriented. It's radical physical optimization, aggressive financial growth, productivity maximization, or, acquiring some measurable, marketable skill.
We are told to side hustle, to crush goals, and to maximize our bandwidth.
That language is everywhere.
And these resolutions aren't random. They directly reflect and reinforce existing societal norms, specifically those that are underpinned by what analysts call neoliberal imperatives.
Okay, let's break that down for a listener. Neoliberal imperatives in a conversational sense. What does that mean in this context?
It's a framework that suggests that every aspect of your life, including your self-care, your health, your financial security, must be managed and optimized through intense personal responsibility. It's all on you.
So if you're stressed, it's not because you're working a 60-hour week in a precarious job. It's because you haven't bought the right mindfulness app or managed your time correctly. And if you're struggling financially, it's not due to stagnant wages or inflation. It's because you haven't mastered the budgeting software or figured out how to monetize your hobbies.
Exactly. This framing subtly guides our focus away from any systemic issues and right back onto the self as the primary project. It obscures structural failures behind a mandate for continuous self-improvement.
The focus is internal, but the standard you're judging yourself by is completely external.
Yes. And this analytical perspective forces us to acknowledge that success is often measured by adherence to these shared, unspoken benchmarks. The use of the passive voice here in the source material is actually quite deliberate.
Oh, so?
It perfectly captures the impersonal, almost institutional nature of this judgment. Success is measured by, not I measure success by, but it is measured.
I appreciate that linguistic note because it really does emphasize that there is no single person enforcing this. It's an ambient, omnipresent pressure.
It is.
Success is often measured by the ability to maintain the highly visible, standardized commitment. The early morning workouts you post about, the perfectly color-coded budget spreadsheet you share online, the publicly displayed reading list of intellectually rigorous books.
It's the visible process of striving that gets rewarded, not necessarily the intrinsic outcome. The signal matters more than the substance.
Signal matters more.
And this is the critical juncture. This is where aspiration collides head-on with market forces. So let's deep dive into that complex relationship between aspiration and status within this whole collective ritual.
Well, it follows logically. If the goal is standardized, then the pathway to that goal has to also be standardized.
Which means it becomes marketable.
Exactly. If everyone agrees that betterment looks a certain way, disciplined, financially savvy, well-resourced, then the tools associated with that look become immediate status markers.
That's it. The aspiration is no longer some private ambition. It is a shared benchmark of what a good citizen or a successful person should be seen doing in January.
The being seen is key.
It is. And consequently, the pursuit of these resolutions and, critically, the tangible, visible tools required for that pursuit become inherently linked to the concept of the status symbol.
It's not enough to simply want to be more productive. You have to be seen using the $60 productivity planner that was endorsed by the right influencer.
Yes.
It's not enough to intend to go for a run. You need the high-tech, GPS-enabled running watch and the specific brand of compression gear that signals you're a serious runner.
These are not merely functional tools. They are expensive, aesthetic declarations of belonging to the aspirational, self-optimizing class.
They're declarations of capital.
Economic and aspirational capital, yes. The decision to purchase a high-end gym membership or subscribe to a premium organizational app or buy that specific brand of specialized athletic footwear or the highly curated organic grocery basket.
All of it.
All of it. These items signal to your peers and to the broader social field that you are actively and seriously engaged in the collective ritual of renewal. It demonstrates not just motivation, but the willingness and the ability to invest significant resources in the accepted optimization project.
So the initial investment, just buying the gear, is less about the future, sustained change, and more about immediate social signaling. It's like buying the symbolic membership jacket before you've even really committed to being in the club.
Absolutely. The purchase acts as a substitute for the effort. In the transactional logic of status, if you can afford the trappings of transformation, you are already perceived as part of the transforming group.
Wow.
And that dynamic perfectly prepares us for the next layer of analysis because this collective ritual sets the stage, but the true psychological engine that compels us to spend and perform is social comparison theory.
That's a smooth transition. But before we jump, I do want to introduce a touch of friction here. I see the synchronization, and I absolutely agree that consumerism plays a massive role. But doesn't framing the entire resolution season as pure social engineering dismiss the genuine private desires many people have? To actually improve their health or learn a new skill. Where does individual agency fit into the sociological model?
That is a critical question to pause on, and it's a fair one. Individual agency is real. People do make genuine, sustainable changes in January. Of course they do.
Okay.
However, sociological analysis reveals that even those deeply private desires are often filtered, shaped, and given a very specific, marketable form by the norms we just discussed.
So my desire is real, but the solution I'm offered is constructed.
Precisely. Your genuine desire for better health might be intrinsically motivated, but the decision to fulfill that desire via a highly structured, expensive keto diet delivered by an app, that specific form of aspiration, is sociologically derived and marketed to you. The structure dictates the manifestation of the impulse.
I see. So the collective ritual doesn't negate the spark of agency, but it offers a very expensive, very standardized lens through which that spark has to be viewed and acted upon.
Yes.
Which makes the pressure cooker of social comparison even more insidious.
Exactly. If the new year provides the synchronized start done and the norms define the target, then social comparison theory is the competitive engine. It ensures compliance and it fuels the consumer cycle.
And how does it work here?
Well, this theory, as it's applied to resolutions, explains why our goals are set less on our own intrinsic needs, what truly makes us feel better, and more on observing and measuring ourselves against what our peers, or more likely today, what influencers are doing.
This is truly the critical driver of the entire resolution economy. We're constantly making these upward comparisons. We look at someone who is performing better, or someone who is projecting an image of idealized, effortless success.
Effortless is the key word.
And then we set our own benchmark relative to theirs. The goal shifts from my personal best to some perceived social parity.
And this comparison is magnified exponentially by the infrastructure of modern life. I mean, think about it. In decades past, your circle of comparison was pretty limited.
Yeah.
Your immediate neighbors, your extended family, maybe a few colleagues at work.
Your local community.
Exactly. But now the comparison is global, it's instantaneous, and it is relentless. We are exposed to a highly curated, professionally optimized highlight reel of millions of successful lives, all commencing their synchronized January reset.
The bar is not just raised, it's been launched into orbit. I think we absolutely have to use the classic idiom here because it perfectly captures that comparison-driven anxiety that's just amplified by technology.
Which one?
We are perpetually keeping up with the Joneses. But the Joneses now include a celebrity fitness trainer, a high-net-worth financial guru on YouTube, and a productivity influencer who's generating passive income from a hammock somewhere in the tropics.
The standard becomes impossibly high and critically universally visible. The content that performs well online, the dramatic before and afters, the meticulously tracked budgets, the 5 a.m. start times, these are not typical behaviors. They are extreme benchmarks presented as if they are achievable norms.
And that exposure creates this intense pressure. If your digital peer group is visibly documenting their radical self-discipline, their acquisition of new high-value skills, or their adoption of some restrictive lifestyle, the pressure to internalize these externally generated standards is immense.
What starts as mere social observation quickly morphs into an interpreted personal failing.
Right.
We think, if they can do this and I am not, it must be because I lack discipline, not because I have a different life structure or different economic resources, or most importantly, because the image being presented is fundamentally deceptive.
So you feel like you must also acquire these habits and these symbols to remain a valid aspirational member of the group.
The mechanism is self-inflicted guilt, but it's driven by external standards. And this comparison process is the great homogenizer. It leads inevitably to the standardization of success.
How so?
If everyone is comparing themselves to the same archetypes, the lean, disciplined, financially savvy creator, Then the resolutions themselves become standardized benchmarks. They're not unique personal quests for fulfillment anymore.
And the market adores standardization.
Oh, it loves it. It allows the resolution industry to sell uniform, high-margin, one-size-fits-all solutions.
Right.
If 80% of the aspirational public is aiming for weight loss, budgeting software, and skill acquisition, you only need 3 highly developed product lines, not millions of nuanced, personalized solutions. The comparison drives demand for identical products.
And the media and social platforms just amplify this standardization by making everything so visible. They create a high-stakes comparative environment where the performance is rewarded.
But where failure is also highly visible, or at least the hiding of failure is a performance in itself.
That's a great point. The initial sign-up post detailing your radical new routine gets thousands of likes, instant validation. But the inevitable drop-off a few weeks later, the skipped gym sessions, the abandoned online course, that has to be hidden or, reframed as a temporary stumble.
This visibility reinforces the fundamentally performative nature of the resolution. The goal shifts subtly. It becomes less about the internal sustainable journey of transformation and more about the external demonstration of commitment.
The social reward is garnered from the public announcement.
The purchase of the expensive gear. The initial motivational post about the new 5 a.m. routine. It's the successful launch, rather than the messy, difficult, sustained effort that gets the applause.
And this constant performative pressure, it fuels a really profound cultural shift, which I think is the ultimate endpoint of social comparison theory in the modern era.
Which is?
The movement from communal goals to this intensely individualistic self-branding, what our sources are calling the me project.
Let's consider the historical context for a moment. If you look at cyclical resets across different cultures, whether they're secular or religious, for much of history, these moments involved communal goals.
What kind of goals?
They focused on shared religious observances, civic participation, or goals aimed at collective family or neighborhood improvement. The focus was outward-facing. It was shared.
But the contemporary resolution is intensely focused on the self. The mandate is always self-optimization, self-care, self-investment, self-improvement.
And this is the Me project. It defines personal improvement less about genuine intrinsic well-being, being happier, more content, and more about constructing a polished, competitive, and publicly marketable identity.
This move to intensely individualistic self-branding means that the resolution itself is intrinsically turned into content.
The individual self becomes a product.
Yes, a product optimized for presentation on modern social platforms. Consider a common goal like running a marathon. In this framework, completing the marathon isn't just a physical achievement.
It's an asset. It's an asset that defines your brand as disciplined, high-achieving, and committed. It adds significant social capital.
And the quantifiable metrics of this Me project are everywhere, and they are absolutely critical to the branding process. We track step counts, calorie density, net worth, screen time, hours of focused work.
And those metrics are not just for your personal information. They are constantly weaponized for public display and for validation.
Even the concept of wellness is productized.
Completely. It's not about feeling well. It's about adhering to the rituals of visible wellness. The expensive yoga mat, the green juice aesthetic, the meticulously documented morning routine.
If the resolution is successful, it just adds to the individual's brand portfolio.
And if it fails, the failure itself is often framed performatively as a learning experience or a setback that will fuel the next, even more aggressive attempt.
The narrative still generates content.
Exactly. The pursuit itself, regardless of the sustainable outcome, is the commodity being traded for validation.
This distinction optimization versus fulfillment is really key here.
It is. You are socially mandated to improve your body, your mind, your finances, not necessarily to achieve a deep sense of personal happiness, but to demonstrate that you are engaged in the perpetual, necessary labor of self-improvement that's required by contemporary societal norms.
To stand still is to fall behind in the comparison game. And this relentless pursuit, driven by comparison and expressed through self-branding, it provides the perfect, fertile ground for the most cynical aspect of the New Year's cycle, the economic ecosystem that thrives entirely on this pressure.
Which means we need to talk about the sheer scale of the commercialization and consumerist exploitation this environment enables.
Absolutely.
So let's precisely define the resolution industry. This isn't just a few companies. It is a massive, multi-billion-dollar economic ecosystem built entirely around capitalizing on that collective fresh start.
It's a machine.
It operates as a highly predictable seasonal sales cycle that reliably leverages that aspirational synchronicity for maximized and often very short-term profit.
And the players are so obvious, drawn directly from our source material and just our lived experience. You have the relentless advertising spikes from large gym chains, sophisticated planners and organizational systems, productivity and wellness apps.
But to truly understand the scale, you have to look at the adjacent markets too.
Right, like specialized athletic wear, high-end nutritional supplements, online course platforms promising you'll master a school in a few weeks.
And targeted financial management tools. The list goes on.
The scale of commercialization is immense. We are literally watching a cultural tradition, the marking of the new solar cycle, being systematically transformed into a highly engineered, predictable, and wildly profitable annual sales event.
And the industry is not merely passively observing our motivation, it is meticulously engineering the social and digital environment to maximize our emotional impulse to buy immediate solutions to these standardized societal pressures.
What's truly fascinating to me about the capitalization strategy is its inherent conflict with sustained change.
Say more about that.
It relies entirely on selling high-cost, often high-commitment solutions to what is, for many, very short-term, socially driven motivation. They are selling transformation based on an emotional impulse in early January.
Often with the clear financial knowledge that sustained behavior change is statistically highly unlikely for the vast majority of their new subscribers.
Exactly. The profit model hinges on the belief that commitment is easier to purchase than it is to maintain.
The act of buying the expensive 12-month membership or the lifetime subscription to an app, that becomes the symbolic fulfillment of the goal itself. It's the ritualistic purchase that validates the self-branding project, regardless of actual usage.
And this brings us to that powerful idiom that serves as a necessary critique of this whole predatory model.
Yes.
The resolution industry often sells someone a bill of goods. It promises this radical transformative change in exchange for cash and commitment, when the true business model relies on the individual failing to utilize the product or service fully past that initial enthusiasm window.
The classic textbook example of this is the high-volume, low-retention gym membership model.
Oh, absolutely.
The business's highest profit margin is achieved when a club signs up 3 to 5 times its sustainable capacity in January, secures 12 months of automatic payments via these high-commitment contracts.
And then what happens?
And then it relies on 80% of those people ceasing attendance within 6 to 8 weeks.
Oh.
They have secured the maximum revenue, that capital investment from the aspirational impulse, without incurring the subsequent operational cost of actually providing the service on a daily basis.
It is a genius, albeit inherently extractive business model. It's built squarely on the predictable failure cycle that results from socially enforced rather than deep, intrinsically motivated goal setting.
The industry doesn't invest in sustainable habit formation research. It invests heavily in marketing and in impulse-driven sign-up mechanisms.
And you see this replicated across the board. The expensive planner that's abandoned by February.
The nutritional subscription service you cancel after 2 deliveries.
The online coding course that remains 5% completed. The revenue is secured up front, powered by that collective January fever.
It is.
Now, this structure, which monetizes aspiration and, frankly, anticipated failure, it compels us to address a deeply important layer of complexity here.
Right.
The role of socioeconomic factors and barriers. The ability to even participate in this monetized resolution economy is inherently stratified. The ability to acquire these status symbols is tied directly to disposable income.
This is a crucial and often overlooked point in the popular narrative of self-improvement. It's so important.
Why is it so crucial?
Because the highly visible symbols of success promoted during the January ritual, the specialized high-intensity interval training classes, the premium organizational apps, access to specific specialized health foods or personal coaches, they are all predicated on the availability of significant disposable income.
And disposable time.
And just as crucially, disposable time.
Yes. If you are working 2 or 3 jobs or dealing with precarious housing or relying on limited public transportation, the very idea of a 5 a.m. workout routine or spending 3 hours a day learning a new language is, well, it's an impossibility, regardless of your personal motivation.
The market's standardized version of success requires a level of privilege.
It does.
And this deeply reinforces the cycle of social comparison in a way that is profoundly unfair. The visible narrative of transformation becomes synonymous with affluence and resource availability.
So if you can't afford the $200 a month gym membership, or the specialized food delivery services, or the high-tech tracking wearables,
Your ability to visibly participate in the collective ritual of optimization is immediately compromised. You are left feeling that your failure is purely individual, when in fact it is structurally constrained.
so for an individual facing genuine systemic socioeconomic barriers, things like wage stagnation, persistent job insecurity, childcare costs, or just limited access to time and resources, their sincere attempts at personal change can feel utterly dwarfed by external forces.
They are dwarfed.
Their individual effort is truly like a drop in the ocean when you compare it to the vast systemic barriers they face.
Exactly. The issues they're trying to resolve, financial insecurity, stress, physical exhaustion, these are structural. Yet the solution being sold is always individual discipline, financial management software, or a mindfulness app.
The root causes are never addressed.
Never. The economic instability, the lack of affordable health care or housing insecurity, these are never addressed by the market's solutions.
This effectively becomes the privatization of systemic problems.
That's a perfect way to put it.
If you are struggling financially, the market sells you a budgeting app and tells you to skip your daily coffee, rather than advocating for or solving the issues of a living wage or affordable debt relief.
Right. And if you are stressed and exhausted, the market sells you a high-cost mindfulness subscription or a specialized supplement regimen, rather than encouraging a reduction in work hours or access to guaranteed time off.
The market encourages us to believe that buying a better planner or a slightly cleaner diet will solve problems that are fundamentally economic or political.
So the resolution industry creates demand by leveraging social pressure. It standardizes that demand for mass consumption, and then it sells the solution at a premium, often knowing that participation is unequal and ultimate attrition is guaranteed.
It's the ultimate manufacturing of aspirational demand. The market doesn't wait for our desire for a fresh start. It actively manufactures and standardizes that desire. It ensures that the standardized aspiration is conveniently and profitably tied to a specific monetized product.
Which closes the loop?
It closes the entire loop of the structure we discussed. The collective ritual creates the pressure, the social comparison defines the goal, and the resolution industry capitalizes on the inevitable, expensive, and cyclical failure.
And the real complexity we've uncovered, I think, is that tension. The tension between the genuine human impulse to improve and the overwhelming force of the external scaffolding that dictates the form and the cost of that impulse.
This has been an insightful and, frankly, a pretty sobering deep dive. Let's take just a moment to synthesize the core argument we've developed here.
Okay.
The New Year's resolution, when you view it through the sociological lens, is a powerful, synchronized ritual that does indeed tap into a genuine psychological need for temporal segmentation.
However, this ritual is instantly co-opted and heavily monetized. It is driven far less by purely internal, sustainable motivation and far more by external comparison. The relentless enforcement of societal norms centered on optimization and the intense pressure of individualistic self-branding.
That tension is inescapable.
It is the tension between the collective expectation and the intensely personalized yet somehow standardized performance.
We've established how these societal norms of success are enforced through the ritual, how social comparison theory fuels the acquisition of necessary status symbols,
And how the resolution industry relies on predictable consumerist exploitation, often selling a bill of goods based on these high-attrition business models that are predicated on the consumer's short-term impulse.
And we also saw how this highly visible, monetized system interacts with socioeconomic barriers, ensuring that for many, their sincere efforts feel like a drop in the ocean against structural challenges.
Right, which reinforces the narrative that failure is a lack of individual discipline rather than a consequence of a deeply unfair system.
The complexity, then, lies in recognizing that while genuine change is always possible and always worth pursuing, the aspiration you feel in January is supported by a massive, highly profitable social and economic scaffolding.
And understanding that scaffolding is the essential first step toward decoupling your goals from that consumerist cycle and making them truly yours.
Which brings us to our final provocative thought for you to carry forward from this deep dive. As you look at your own goals, big or small, for the year ahead, we'd encourage you to just pause and critically examine their origin.
Ask yourself this question directly. How much of your resolution is for you? And how much is to satisfy a social expectation?
Consider the economic and social scaffolding that supports your current set of aspirations. Are you buying into a standardized, expensive product? Or are you committing to a messy, sustainable, and perhaps less publicly performative process?
Understanding the origin of the impulse, whether it comes from within or from the Joneses on your social feed, that is the first step toward genuine, non-performative change.
A compelling question to leave with. Thank you for diving deep into the sociology of aspiration with us today.
A pleasure.
We'll see you next time.